Hey, everybody, welcome back. Tonight, we're going to be covering baseball. If you caught us a couple weeks ago, we went over our baseball predictions for the season. Since then, there have been some injuries, some other developments with certain teams that, me personally, I couldn't overlook. And I felt like maybe doing a 2.0 or, retakes or something like that for some of the picks might be helpful here. I'm Patrick, alongside Wayne, as always. We'll also talk about the White Sox, what we took out of our own fantasy drafts over the weekend, and as well as just looking forward to opening day taking place here Thursday, March 30th, and kind of things we'll pull out, for the season, things that we're tracking, interested in overall, and we'll end on some final thoughts. So without further ado, Wayne, did you have any retakes or, edits you wanted to make to any of your standings or, player predictions overall?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. No, I feel pretty good about where my standings are. I feel like, there's been a lot of, there's been some injuries here and there, but I feel like they've kind of sorted themselves out there. I think maybe both of us predicted like the Phillies to take a little bit of a step back. There's Harper, but then now, there's also Hoskins as well. He's out for the season. So, that's just several bats, powerful bats there. So I don't see them necessarily like making a run. Would love to be proven wrong, but yeah, that's just a tough division. I feel like with the Braves and the Mets there. So even if they do get Harper in the later half of the season, it's still going to be they probably still have to make some ground up there. So feeling pretty good overall about all the standings. Blue Jays too. I picked them to win the division. Yankees have a couple injuries here and there right off the bat, so I'm feeling pretty good about the Jays. I think there was like one award that or two awards, the Managers of the Year awards. I think those are the ones I'm looking at, and I'm going to go complete homer here. So I'm going to pick Pedro Grifol to win the Manager of the Year, and then also double homer with the Cubs, David Ross to win Manager of the Year for the Cubs. They made some free agent acquisitions. I don't know how much you want to put that on David Ross and his contributions there, but they still have, a fairly, decent young roster, not too much expectations, had 74 wins last season. So, with the acquisitions that they made, maybe a plus year from Cody Bellinger. I definitely think that they have enough assets to like maybe win like around 500 or closer to like 80 some odd games. So, and I think that's and we were speaking about this in the last episode we did for baseball. It's kind of hard to pick like a Manager of the Year because it's usually like a manager that takes a team that like was probably predicted for like 60 wins or 70 wins, and then turns them into 80 or maybe more, right? So but yeah, I think those are like just kind of my initial ones there. Again, didn't see too many changes, I think, from what I predicted, definitely for the White Sox Central and all that too. So yeah, not too many changes there. I feel pretty confident, I think, with my choices in terms of the standings and also awards too. So, but Pat, what about you? Any comments on my takes? And would love to hear about all the fun changes that you've talked about making this past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I guess first off, I have a question for you just with the David Ross pick. Where do you think the Cubs end up this year? I mean, if you're picking him to win Manager of the Year, I'd have to imagine the club have to be over 500. So, I mean, are they a playoff team in your mind, or are they just barely missing out on getting in?
I think they might miss out. I think they might miss out. And I might have picked, I think I picked the Brewers not even missing the playoffs there. I think you had them in there. So that's definitely where I feel like, maybe they can, maybe they can't. But in terms of at least, the Cubs and where they stand, yeah, I'm actually getting more optimistic about them. I feel like so within that division, it is. If you look at the NL, like it's, I guess, one of the weaker divisions. You look at the NL East, that's definitely packed and stacked. The NL West, like the Dodgers, even though they've had some injuries here and there, and obviously have the Padres too, and suspensions, etc. on their end, and some injuries as well. It's you look at the NL Central though, it's definitely a very like winnable type of division, just not as strong, I guess, as the other divisions that I mentioned in the NL. So that's where I see, and you look at the Pirates, Cincinnati Reds, not too much there. So I definitely feel like they could, score some wins there.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think the Cubs they're gonna have a decent year. Like you're saying with that division, the bottom of it is terrible. Like, will be two of the worst baseball teams, I think, in the league. And even the Brewers, like, they're missing a lot of punch on offense. They have some pretty good pitchers, throughout the rotation. But yeah, I mean, I think besides the Cardinals, there's not really like a sure thing there. I guess overall, I'm kind of like in line with what you're speaking about with the Phillies, and enough so that that's one of my modifications, I guess, were in the NL East and then also in the AL East. But at least in the NL East, I'm going to get a little bit more bullish now on the Miami Marlins. Not to a point where I'm putting them over the Mets to, grab a wild card spot or whatever else, but I think they're going to be better than most people think. I think the Phillies might actually stumble below 500 this year without Hoskins and Harper. I think that's being really overlooked. It's not being taken seriously enough by analysts. I think that, Trey Turner's obviously an amazing baseball player, but there are like certain emotional blows I think certain teams just can't weather. And coming into a year with a couple big injuries, I mean, you think about any sports team in any league, whenever that's the case, there is some sort of effect that it has on the guys in the locker room. Like, you just lose out on a little bit of that confidence, the edge that you had, going into the year or what you did the previous season. So I see them taking a step back. And, like you're saying, the pitching across the NL East is pretty dominant. And if the Phillies are down two of their better hitters and they have to go against, the Braves staff, the Mets staff, and now the Marlins staff, I think they're going to catch a lot more L's than people are thinking. And, if the Marlins can piece together any sort of offense with the guys they got, in a rise, and you brought over Yuli Gurriel last week and Jose Iglesias on minors deals. They've got, some decent punch in the outfield with Dela Cruz, maybe Soler, Avisale, Jesus Sanchez could have some sort of bounce back years. But yeah, I'm going to put them in third. And I actually just second guessed myself with the Mets winning the division. I think the Braves are. I like their rotation now more than I thought. There's a few guys toward the end of their rotation that we don't talk about as much. We have Schuster, who's a 24-year-old lefty who's been just pretty dominant in spring training. First round pick of theirs or second round, one or the other, but he's been moving up the minors pretty quickly. He got the call for the fifth spot in the rotation. They've got another starter named Dylan Dodd, who's younger, just barely missed out on the rotation, but he's kind of in line. And then they had Bryce Elder from last year, who was pretty good, who's probably going to start in the minors. So it's just like they're going pretty deep in their rotation. And I really didn't consider those three probably as much as I should have. And that offense is stacked just like the Mets is. And just looking at the Edwin Diaz injury and Jose Quintana, that just like bumps them down just a little bit for me. I still think they'll be good, but I had to just make some mods there. In the AL East, the only thing I wanted to do is flip-flop the Blue Jays and the Yankees for similar reasons as, what's been going on with the Mets and other teams. But to kind of not be really sure about where Rodon's going to be this year, like, that's a huge one for them because they're already missing some starters in general. Luis Severino is going to start on the IL. Montas will also be probably missing most of the season. So it's just like all these things I think Yankees fans and sports fans were banking on with the Yankees this year. It's like, they're not really returning a lot of the same talent they had even last year. And it's like they didn't make enough splashes in the offseason besides spending way too much money on Aaron Judge, even though he's an amazing baseball player. It's like I didn't see enough from them that gets me too excited. And I think Anthony Volpe, although he may have like a really, great career as a Yankee, I just think coming up at 20 years old to be the starting shortstop, I mean, Derek Jeter obviously is, is a legend, but it's like there's a lot of expectations being placed there on really young guys, and I just think the Blue Jays are more sound top to bottom. So those were my two main mods that I just wanted to throw out there. Doesn't affect my playoff bracket all that much. I still have the Padres over the Blue Jays ultimately, but just wanted to throw those points out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll comment on your shakeup in the AL East, and I can tackle the NL East there. So, I definitely agree. I think with regards, I think I had the Yankees second here, but I'm almost like wondering, will the Rays actually catch up with the Yankees here? I mentioned it last time, like healthy Franco, healthy Brandon Lowe, like, and then Glasnow is going to be coming back. I know he has a oblique injury. He may be back like in May, I think late April is potentially what they're looking at. So having a team, basically like the lineups and the rosters that they had like 2 years ago when they like won 100 games or something like that or close to it. So, if they have all those assets healthy, like, and then the Yankees, they have a bunch of new faces, injuries here and there. It can definitely, it's not out of question, I think, with regards to the Rays overtaking the Yankees in this division. I still think the Blue Jays will probably win it. Going to the season right now, at least they're healthy. I know Ryu, he's looking to probably come mid-season, and that can only help, right? They still have a pretty decent pitching staff there. So, I definitely, I think, like that take and see, the Yankees maybe taking a step back here in the AL East. And then, with regards to the NL East, I did like those points I think you mentioned with regards to, Diaz being out. Like, we can talk about sabermetrics and closers and stuff like that. In the end of the day, he's one of the game's best closers, in all baseball. So that definitely is going to be a blow there. And then, with the Phillies, like you mentioned, the pitching staff in that entire division is just stacked. So when you lose any type of bats on your offensive side, and we can talk about also the Phillies pitching staff. I think they added Walker, Taijuan Walker, but other than that, like not too many changes here and there. They still have Wheeler and Noah, which is great, right? But still, at the end of the day, you're going against some top line pitching, and then they also have top line hitting too, and you're missing two of your best at bats. So, great, they added Trey Turner, but like you mentioned, I feel like it's kind of just an arms race, the NL East. So, interesting if the Marlins are able to take the Phillies. I don't think so at the end of the day, but that could be something. They definitely have the pitching staff to do that. I just don't know if the hitting's there. Is kind of my take on that. But the Braves though, they definitely are looking and moving up, I think, in that division though.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing with the Phillies is I think Ranger Suarez is going to be out for some time too. So it's like it really starts to cut into that rotation. I think you can count on probably a lot from Nola and Wheeler. But once Taijuan Walker is kind of done, then it's like you and a Bailey Falter. There's, maybe some other guys that, are kind of 5th, 6th starters. Maybe they're going to like play around with there. It's it's just getting thinner by the day. I like your point about the Rays. I think you can never overlook them. They've been so good for 10 plus years, whatever it is now. Even going back to like the Madden years, they've just established a culture of winning, next man up kind of mentality. Losing Glasnow hurts for a couple months, and I think Wander Franco, like they're still trying to figure out. I think they're doing MRI on his quad or something going on with his lower half, and it's I don't know if it's going to take away ball games. They haven't really made like real analysis clear there yet, but if he's down for some time, that just takes like another, big hit to that roster. But they're the type of team that's like so resilient, and they just know how to develop. They know how to like recruit the right free agent on a discount, and like they're just going to be competitive. They're going to be competitive. So, if the Yankees stumble, I mean, the AL East is a lot different than it was when we were growing up. Like Toronto's spending real money. The Rays got really smart. Even the Orioles now, like I don't expect a whole lot. From them, like kind of moving up the standings with the rotation they have and where it's kind of at, but like they're still making strides. They're bringing up some real talent from the minors, and they're getting their stuff together. So we'll just have to see. But I think thoughts all around are pretty solid. There's a lot of randomness that can occur throughout a baseball season. There's teams that can emerge out of really nowhere, just getting hot and stringing wins together. So anything's really possible.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, and I'm definitely excited. Potentially what's going to happen with the White Sox. I mentioned, I guess, Pedro Grifol and everything. So that's where I'm really giddy about. So Pat, like, what are your thoughts on the White Sox this season? moving forth. Any predictions, any players that you're excited to see and watch?
Yeah, I might have mentioned this on our 1.0 on the predictions, but I like our top end talent better than most teams in our division. I think I would take our top end guys, whether that's 3 of our starting pitchers or 5 of our lineup stars. Like, I would take those guys over anybody else's 3 and 5 in those categories. I think the thing that I'm still worried about is, what happens when a couple guys go down, which probably will happen. I mean, just based on how much time some of these guys have missed over the last couple of years, you can expect there to be some periods of time where maybe we're not going to have our full roster, or some of our guys will be on the IL. So it's like, who's the next man to step up? Who's going to be, filling those holes? Like, I love what I saw from Hanser Alberto in spring training, but career-wise, he's under like a 300 OBP, which is just really underwhelming. His batting average actually almost matches his OBP because he doesn't walk and he, just strikes out a ton. He loves to swing the bat, but it's kind of like Gavin Sheets. If he's not playing DH in first, I don't want to see him out in the outfield all that much. Just kind of Romy Gonzalez, is that guy able to play real time for us, real, productive games for us at the professional level? Like, it's all like yet to be seen. I worry a little bit about, what I've been hearing from Kopech in spring training, just not really, showing out or showing, much improvement over what, he's done last year and stuff. And it's like, those things are kind of concerning. Clevenger, I think, got rocked by the Cubs even too the other day. So it's like, I don't know, man. All that said, the Guardians just lost Tristan McKenzie today. He's going to be gone for 8 weeks. That's their number 2 starter. That's really good news for us. I do think that the Twins they're going to have injury issues of their own, probably just based on history with guys like Buxton, Correa, Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda might not be all that, but it's like, I just feel like they've got a deeper rotation. They go 7 deep. When you look at their backups and the guys they have in the high minors, it's like they've got some depth to pull from there, where it's like, you miss Buxton, you can bring in Michael Taylor. You lose Correa, you've got Kyle Farmer, who was like a starting shortstop for the Reds last year. So it's like they've just got some guys who've been there, done it a little bit more. So I think I'm still going to stick with the Twins there reluctantly. I want the Sox to be a 100-win team this year. I want them to win it all. I want everything to go perfectly. But I have a little bit of doubts. If there is some things that I'm especially excited about, looking forward to Andrew Vaughn's progress. I'd love to see him just be a 30, 100 guy like Masher, like I think we all think he's capable of being. And then Oscar Colas, I know he has a lot of swing and miss to his game, but just hearing really good things out of spring training. Hopefully his time in Japan and, in Cuba and the minors have been, good enough experience for him to like feel comfortable at the pro level. So if he can take real strides and be an everyday outfielder, like production wise, that's a real steal for us, because we need solid defense out there, number one, but we also need a guy who can stick a little bit from the left side too.
Yeah, no, that's a good take. And I definitely agree. I like if we're able to be, I think healthy, right, is the biggest thing for the White Sox. And if we're not, like when an injury is inevitable, it's it's bound to happen. It is nice. Yeah, we do have, I guess, in my opinion, like a Gavin Sheets in the, potentially in the outfield, or to spell, Andrew Vaughn. Like, it is nice to have a Gavin Sheets who can slug it out there. So I definitely like, that Jake Berger too, again, having a slugger there. So I think there is some depth, but to me, yeah, it's just making sure that our players as healthy as possible. I mean, I think I liked how Moncada has been looking like, I guess in this preseason, if you will, with the World Baseball Classic. So I think that's something to be hopeful for. But yeah, the pitching squad hasn't really shown too much this spring training. I think all our pitchers have like gotten shelled on occasions here and there. So that's not as promising. Hopefully it's just them experimenting and then screwing around a little bit there. So, but yeah, no, I'm just trying to be as optimistic as possible. Maybe it is the homer in me again, like I said. So I am predicting them to win the division here. Probably like 90 some odd games to win it. And then, yeah, like, Tristan McKenzie, out for several weeks, about 2 months now, right? So I definitely feel, I guess, confident, unfortunately enough, or unfortunate for them, but yeah, I think that definitely gives us hopefully an opportunity to get ahead there. I am interested to see though what happens with the Royals. I think they've had a really good spring training. They do have like some young pitching, although not completely proven. So if there is like a sleeper pick, in my opinion, on teams that could, maybe not even win the division, but make a push, maybe like to like 500, and that can take some wins away from, the White Sox or Twins. Potentially the Royals is a team I guess I might be a little bit afraid of there. Just a lot of young talent that they've, accumulated through some draft picks and, getting rid of some free agents and things like that. So, but they've been looking pretty good this spring training, and that definitely could be potentially a team, with Witt and everything, Singer. So if there's a young team out there that can scrap some wins and make a push, it could potentially be the Royals there. But overall, excited for the White Sox. Hoping for the best, hoping they stretch and get in motion and everything so they don't get hurt. So
Yeah, I just want to see Luis Robert play like 150 games. Like we've just heard nothing about this immense talent, and same goes for Eloy. It's like I think those guys are clearly on like another shelf when it comes to just the near elite to elite baseball players in the game, and it's like we just haven't gotten to see them play to their potential. Moncada, hopefully his back's okay. I know he had that big collision in the World Baseball Classic, but don't want to start off with him losing time. And Tim Anderson's been just kind of hobbled over the last couple of seasons, but still, I mean, he's a really productive player, an all-star shortstop. I mean, I like Tim. We need to see him out there. So I'm excited. And I don't mind your Royals, dark horse pick as well. I mean, they've got, outside of Witt and Singer, I mean, Vinny Pasquantino is, really good, walk to strikeout ratio guy. He's got a really great eye at the plate, good power. He's coming up. He's on the rise. MJ Melendez, a catcher. Guy hit like 40 home runs as a catcher in AA, AAA in 21. And it's like, they're just waiting for him to kind of bust out of his shell. And Greinke's still there. He's still like getting innings and, pitching pretty decently. So even though he'll strike out like one guy per 9 innings, like he's still, just kind of a wizard out there. So yeah, they might have a little bit of like dog in them, and it might be interesting to, I'm sure we'll have some really scrappy series against them throughout the year. That's what I'm probably going to be seeing throughout this season.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a grind, I think, within the AL Central here. Even though the Guardians won the division last year, like I'm looking at a bunch of other, predictions for 2023. Not one has predicted them to win the division. It always seems like, even though they really haven't lost like too many players. I know they lost Tristan McKenzie, right, to injury, but they still have a lot of their roster intact. It's just like there's a feeling that they're all going to take a regression or some sort of regression there. And then obviously there's a lot of optimism for the White Sox, new manager, new regime, not complete new regime, but different feel, I think, towards this season. And then like you mentioned, there's been a lot of, I think, optimism for the Twins. Hopefully again, they are healthy too, with all the talent that they have, Buxton too, and all that fun stuff. So it's like, hey, if they can, they've always been that scrappy team. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, I think, in this division, but there's just a lot of, I guess, unknowns, a lot of, it's definitely not as defined, I feel like, as like maybe the AL or NL East as much. So
I don't know about you when your draft actually took place, but at least for fantasy, I had my draft on Sunday, and always a great time. Just love, honestly, sitting there in my picks, really quiet. I mean, I feel like I had a couple friends over, but in general, we didn't even talk to each other until like round 10, which is just like the funniest thing. But my buddy brought his monitor over, so he's sitting across in my family, like just on my dining room, whatever, like had a monitor and then his laptop. I had my laptop, and my phone and some notes, and then his brother just went off with his phone. So, but I don't know. For me, like some people like jumping out of planes or surfing or, you know, climbing large mountains or something. Like I just loved like looking at stats and geeking out over some of my favorite baseball players. So but we had a great time, and man, the spread was real nice. And I know we always save food for final thoughts, but I gotta like just shell it out here because it's just so fitting. But I ordered 5 pizzas. I had a pineapple, bacon, and spicy chili sauce underneath the cheese for that one. We had a white pizza with chicken and spinach on it. We had a pepperoni feta onion one that was pretty good, a meat lovers, and a cheese. And my buddy brought over from this Heidelberg bakery in Arlington. He brought over these really big pretzels, soft pretzels, and then cronuts. I don't know if we talked about cronuts on the donut segment, but man, like nearly life-changing, dude. Like I can't remember if there's something else that has like a croissant interior to it, but like the donut and the croissant are like a perfect marriage. So do you have any quick thoughts on cronuts at all?
I mean, I like them better than mochi nuts. I think I was talking to one of my friends about mochi nuts. Like, why is this a thing? Like, they're not that great. I think it's like a petite, like, maybe for women, they're trying to like watch their waistlines a little bit, like all that, right? I think that's like where there's a little bit more aware. But to your point with regards to cronuts, it's like, croissant, donut, like, let's make this thing happen. Like, there's no apologies whatsoever for what you're about to experience. So I definitely like a good cronut for sure. So man, like you've been talking about like dieting and stuff like that, and I'm like, how's that going on right now with all this stuff? I have a salad, I think, for breakfast tomorrow or something.
Yeah, it's been weird, like not to get into like workout meals, etc., but it's like just trying to cut like carbs and stuff that's just, if you can take the bun out, or if you can just take, any sort of like mayo, just sauces that like are just not going to contribute to your health, like within the food. Like that's kind of how I've been more or less eating. But it's just, you get to these big parties, like we talked about Super Bowl or others, like you just got to have fun, so it's like, I still have my fun, like, a few nights a week, I would say, but it's like, he also like we brought over like a bunch of Guinness, lagers, and just, the drought, drafts as well. So it's just like, man, just got to like kick back and just enjoy the finer things in life sometimes. But yeah, dude, overall, just, it was a good draft party, number one. And I guess number two, just like the draft itself, like we can definitely discuss how both of our drafts went. I know you joined a public league. For mine, it's a 12-team head-to-head points league. So just kind of the criteria that I go off is a little bit different. I'm looking for guys with plate discipline, pitchers, with strikeouts, the ratios aren't as important. So I know there's leagues where ERA, WHIP are really, standard important, but for us, it's more or less like, earned runs to Ks and quality starts and stuff like that. So you're, looking for guys that can probably, gobble up a bunch of innings and fire a bunch of strikeouts and stuff like that. So, maybe we turn to you real quick to like kind of set up yours. And then if you want, we can just go a couple rounds apiece and talk about the guys we drafted.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, yeah, mine was just head to head. I just went on ESPN. I was like, hey, let me just join a draft to see what all this fuss is about. So I did all that, just a standard snake draft on ESPN. And I was able to nab the third pick overall. And, we talked about Shohei. He definitely was first. I think he's going first in like most leagues out there, unless people are crazy. And then Soto was second. And I was like, you know what? Like they took the two best, like I guess, positional players, or Shohei's a little bit of both. So I went with Garrett Cole, just because he's been durable, pretty much most of his career, and is a strikeout machine. So there's definitely been, I guess, that talk between Cole and Corbin Burns, right? For I guess top pitcher, Corbin Burns had like 240 some odd strikeouts, I think, this season. I think the key differentiator there, wins is a category for stats here. So I'm just thinking that Garrett Cole, he's going to put out more wins with the Yankees offense. So that's kind of my overall thinking there. Picked me against over Aaron Judge, Jose Ramirez were some other names there, but I just feel like Garrett Cole. I know he's a little bit older, 32 and everything, but he really hasn't regressed too much. I think the past couple of seasons, 230 plus strikeouts in each of the past couple of seasons, and has pitched at least 30 games. So feeling pretty good about that one there. And then you know what? I just went a little bit wild round 2 as well. Again, snake drafts was a little bit later in the second round, just 10 teams. I doubled up on pitching. I got the future Cy Young of the AL, Dylan Cease. So just went 2 strikeout machines basically. Hoping also, again, I'm optimistic for the White Sox. I think Cease's win total will increase as well, on top of all the strikeouts he'll get and accumulate, and not allowing too many runs. So those are my first 2 picks. Pat, what do you think? And would love to hear yours.
Yeah. I also picked from the 3rd spot. Points league, just a little bit different, but Garrett Cole was on kind of my short list of guys that I was considering once, before the draft actually kicked off officially. So my thoughts were, the first 2 guys to go in my league were going to be Judge and J-Ram. So I was like, if it does fall to me, my next options are an elite hitter, or I can go with one of the 3 starters that, performed the best last year. The 2 guys you mentioned up front, and then Alcantara. So I was like, okay, who's going to be my choice at number 3? And the first guy in our order picked Acuna, which I was like, okay, Acuna's a stud. Like, we all know that, but a lot of his value comes from the fact that he can steal bases as well as have the power that he does. And he actually probably plays better to a categories league, in my opinion. So it was like, okay, so now I'm going to get one of the 2 bashers that I was looking for. So instead of the pitchers, I got Aaron Judge, to kind of fall to me. And to be honest with you, last year he had about 630 points in my league versus a guy like J-Ram, who I think had like 550 or so. And I think Acuna had under 500 just based on his injuries. So I was like, okay, you give me the best player in the entire, league, at least how our points are, devised at number 3 overall. I'm like, that was an easy pick for me. Working its way back, a lot of the big pitchers started falling off the board. You were talking about Cease. He might have gone a little bit after the second round. Maybe at the end of the second round is when Cease went. But I was seeing a lot of the more elite pitching, like all the guys we just talked about with Spencer Strider, Aaron Nola, other guys. So I was like, okay, everybody else is going pitching. Like, I'd love to grab a good pitcher here, but it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I went with Rafael Devers to play third base. Maybe a little bit of a scarcer position this year, but just in general, I think 2 years back, he was a top 5 hitter in fantasy. Last year, I think he had, missed 20 or so games. So I think his value got cut a little bit, but he still put up a good amount of points last year. He's probably like a top 20 player last year. And, looking at a lot of the projections, I was like, okay, if he just stays a little healthier this year, but does the same thing, like, it's not going to be a bad pick. It's if anything, it's just going to be like a good, a good enough second round pick where I don't have to worry about too much risk in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, no, yeah, I think those players are really solid. You're really loving the AL East here, right? So, but I mean, and I'm not too familiar, I guess, with the Red Sox lineup at the moment, but if Yoshida's ahead of him, then batting ahead of Devers, and that's going to be some RBI opportunities, I think, for Devers, who's proven that he can be kind of that middle of the lineup type of player. Yeah, the Red Sox, probably not going to win the division this year, right? But hey, if Devers can knock in Yoshida, and Yoshida had like a really good on-base percentage. It's one of those Japanese players. They definitely seem to be a lot more disciplined, and probably apart from Ichiro, I think, right? Just discipline at the plate. So I think that's a good that could be potentially a good haul, I think, there at the second. And then Aaron Judge, if total bases is a key metric for your league, then I definitely think that's a good haul there, especially, with all the walks that he's going to be getting. So on top of, his production with home runs, et cetera, too. So, yeah.
For sure. Who'd you grab in the third and fourth?
Third and fourth. Let me see now here. So third round 3, had the third pick. I definitely wanted to get a positional player, and I was kind of debating between a couple players here. There's Pete Alonso was available, Mike Trout was available. I thought maybe him, but I kind of went for the positional value here as shortstop Corey Seager. He's still fairly young, still a bit of upside. So shortstop position, there's at this point in the draft, a lot of them are already kind of taken. So I definitely wanted to have somebody that can get those bases, slug it out a little bit. So yeah, I went with Corey Seager there. Again, like I mentioned before, Mike Trout and Pete Alonso, Marcus Semien, I think was also available, Paul Goldschmidt, etc. And then fourth round here. Again, my draft is a little bit different from yours. I was actually able to nab Rafael Devers here. So fell to the fourth round for me. And all the points I mentioned before, still plays in Fenway, and he can still slug it in Fenway, I feel like. And hey, if he's healthy with Yoshida, hopefully batting ahead of him, then I think that's going to produce some RBIs there. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, fourth round that's criminal. I agree. His offense is not going to be the Yankees offense, the Blue Jays offense, other great offenses across the league. But I mean, he's only 26 years old. And that's the thing. Like, he's already had 2-3 quality seasons before then. And it's like, if he's in the top 20 at 26 years old and he's stayed relatively healthy and he's going to bat atop, that lineup, even if it only goes 5 deep, it's like, I still like his chances of having a good, productive season and being like one of the top, couple third basemen out there. So to grab him in the fourth round was, definitely a steal. And then Corey Seager had a great year last year. So did Marcus Semien for the Rangers too in their first years as Rangers or whatnot. But he has experienced some injuries earlier on in his career, but for whatever reason, he was able to string it together and kind of play through a full season last year. And, he's going to put those numbers up. Like, he's a very balanced hitter. He's got a really good batting approach. He's not going to drop 40 home runs or anything like that, but you're going to get a lot of doubles, a lot of runs, a lot of base hits, good average, good OBP. So I think that's a really safe pick, to be honest with you, and one of the more quality shortstops in the game.
Well, thank you, Pat. Who's your next couple picks there?
3 and 4, I got Paul Goldschmidt coming back to me, which I just, last year, I think based on points alone, he was top 5 as an offensive player. So to kind of see him fall, I know he's going into his age 35 season, but I was like, man, this guy put up just a great amount of points last year. And again, I was kind of eyeing a starting pitcher because I don't necessarily want to go into the year with not a lot of depth there, but I was like, some of this value just falling to me because a lot of people went pitching heavy was like just too obvious for me to overlook. So I just grabbed him because I knew that's another guy I think is pretty safe and he's going to be consistent and probably put up the points that he normally does. And like, I just don't have to, sweat about his risk return there. Coming back to me, I got Framber Valdez in the 4th round. And I know to many that's like a name that's like, oh yeah, Framber Valdez, he's a good pitcher, this and that. And, like he's a nice to have kind of guy in my staff. But, again, looking at my numbers and the way that we work, quality starts matters, strikeouts matter, wins matter, all that good stuff, earn runs. He was a really just great pitcher last year. If you really look at the numbers, I mean, 200 innings, 195 strikeouts. I think he had the most quality starts in the game, and he was a top 4 pitcher last year in just overall points in my league. So I was like, I think 12 to 13 other pitchers went before him. So I was like, you're going to give me the 4th guy, and he's still in his prime. Now he's going to be, the head of the rotation there with Verlander out. I'm like, he plays for the Astros. Just seemed like super safe for me. So I didn't have any qualms taking him right there.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I definitely like Goldschmidt. He's definitely just going to be a consistent, good batting, especially with the Cardinals and that offense and that roster. He's going to have protection with Arenado him as well. So I think he's going to still still going to be able to contribute, I think, there. And yeah, like first base, they tend to age fairly well, right, compared to I guess maybe some other positions. So, and then yeah, Valdez. I mean, that's the thing with the Astros is like they're all pretty damn good. So if he can just continue on build off of what he did last year, and then yeah, I think that's a solid choice too. So and yeah, could potentially even get some wins for you as well. You know, with that lineup there. So
How about you for rounds 5 and 6?
yeah, rounds 5 and 6 I got. So I had the third pick, 5th round. I was able to nab second baseman. I kind of went the infielder route here. Ozzie Albies from Atlanta, the second baseman there. You know, still young and everything. I know he's kind of battled injuries here and there, but still has all that talent in the world, I feel like. So picked him. You know, I didn't really want to go too much, I guess, pitching here. There is some pitches here I thought about nabbing, like Alek Manoah. I was definitely thinking about that, like in terms of overall, like, you know, points and stuff like that. I definitely think he could be a good contributor, especially, you know, get some wins, I think, with Toronto there. You know, Bobby Witt Jr. was also here. Will Smith for a catcher. That was definitely something I considered there. But yeah, for me, I wanted to get the second baseman. For me, it's, you know, sometimes I think there's kind of a drop off. I don't know if there's any analytics behind this, but I feel like sometimes for second baseman, there can be a significant drop off in terms of, I guess, you know, producing runs, batting, hitting, and things like that. So I was like, you know, with that Atlanta roster, I feel like getting an Ozzie Albies can be, you know, of good value there. And then with my 6th round pick, I did want to go outfielder here. My first outfielder, right? Go figure, is Cleveland Guardians outfielder Stephen Kwan, actually. So really great in terms of getting like on base, batting average, etc. Maybe not the biggest slugger, but you know, I think I can address that in other in later rounds too, especially with the positional value, I guess, that I got with my infield. I feel like, you know, getting some slugging outfielders, I think, is what I was looking for in the rounds afterwards. So yeah, those are my 2 picks.
Yeah, Albies in round 5 is I think industry is pretty, you know, good with that, especially with second base being thinner at the start of the year than it usually is. Sometimes I see, like, over the course of the year, like when prospects started coming up or whatever it could be, like sometimes I think some of this position scarcity stuff is like a little bit overblown by the analysts. I think they're just, you know, obviously doing their due diligence there and kind of trying to set up tiers and things like that. But overall, I think Albies is a great player. If there is a knock on him, they said that, you know, when he did pop, I think 30 home runs in one of the, you know, seasons ago, maybe it was 2021. He might've been banged up a little bit last year, but they said that was like kind of like the juice ball, you know, the end of the juice ball era or whatever. And, you know, so just to expect some like power regression, but he's still a really good baseball player. I mean, he's going to get runs. He's going to drive guys in. He usually bats in a power spot. So probably count on a lot of RBIs from the second base position, which probably pretty uncharacteristic for most other guys. Stephen Kwan was an on-base machine last year for the Guardians. So, you know, if he can repeat what he did last year or come close, like that's a really great guy to like carry your average up, your OBP, some steals, a lot of runs. I mean, I just think he plays the game the right way. He's really disciplined. Would love to have a Stephen Kwan on the White Sox for sure. Just have to see how that team pans out, because I think a part of what we talk about with the Guardians is like, do we really believe it? You know, was last year a real thing, or did a lot of guys just play above their heads? You know, maybe a guy like Kwan or Andres Jimenez or Ahmed Rosario. So it's kind of like, I want to see more maybe. But the Guardians are a great team. They're really well coached, well organized. So I think those 2 picks are fine. And yeah, no, solid.
What do you got on next in your picks?
Yeah, so for round 5, as it came back, this was a really tough one for me because what I started to feel was a lot of that starting pitcher pressure. You know, I was like, man, guys are just gobbling up all the guys that I'll need to build a rotation out with. So I felt in this spot, I had to take a starting pitcher, and I think I had 10 seconds left on my timer because I had to let Alex Bregman go. And Alex Bregman, to me, number one, I had Devers at third. I didn't need a third baseman, but I have 2 utility spots, and I was just like Bregman is like one of my man crushes in baseball because like as much as he's a scoundrel, just on paper, this guy in his walk to K ratio is just so good. He's such a good he has such a good batting eye, and he has a lot of power, and his game is just really underappreciated to me. I feel like there's always a debate about the best third basemen, and I feel like he's not even in the discussion. And when you look under the hood, I just think he's just so solid. But I had to pass on him to go out to the Northwest where you were once from, and this guy's having a great spring, but has also won the Cy Young before. So I went after Robbie Ray as my second starter. Felt like we've seen him do really big things, and even when he's kind of not having his best stuff, he's still able to strike out a lot of guys, and his counting stats are usually pretty steady overall. I feel like he's stayed relatively healthy too. So went on a limb a little bit, felt a little dirty about it because I didn't get Bregman, but feel good enough about like how my rotation started there. And then for the 6th round pick, I got our guy from last year, Tommy Edman, top 5 WAR from last season. Again, guy who can steal bases. He can score a bunch of runs if he's hitting atop the order. Like really excited about him. I think one of the things they've been talking about with him and why maybe his value's been dropped a little bit is that there's going to be some competition for the leadoff spot, and they're more or less saying like he may bat, leadoff when there are lefties on the hill, and then I think when they're righties, they may drop him further down for Lars Nootbaar. So that would probably hurt if he's batting in the 9 hole. I'm not getting enough at bats, but in general, at the second base position, again, up front, it's a little scarce. So I was like, okay, I think I can count on Tommy Edman to be a good baseball player there.
Yeah, I think you ought to have gone with your heart and got Alex Bregman. I feel like, like this is definitely one of those like, like she may look really, really good or something like that, but does she have soul? Do I love her? Do I have that lust for her, that passion, whatever? So no, I get it. You definitely needed some pitching, it sounded like. So not gonna fault you for that. Tommy Edman, man, Mr. WAR. I feel like if this was if WAR was like a fantasy football stat, I don't know how that would work out, right? But if it was a fantasy football stat or a baseball stat, then I feel like that could be a pretty amazing player to have there as second baseman or kind of a utility there. So no, I think those are all fun picks there. So I can go on with my 7th and then 8th rounder here though. My 7th round, and I drafted before I think the news came out that this player got hurt. Tristan McKenzie actually here. Yeah, no, I wanted to solidify my pitching staff a little bit and then kind of go to some other positional players there. So I went with Tristan McKenzie. I thought, still plays for the Guardians and everything, and he had really solid stats last season. But yeah, just was not accounting for him being hurt off the bat here. So and it's kind of sad because if I was looking at or targeting one player here that I'm looking at, Dalton Varsho, I for positional value or his positional flexibility, that was something I was eyeing. So wasn't able to nab him again in the 7th round here in an ESPN head-to-head draft. So definitely missed out on him. But hey, we'll see. Hopefully McKenzie pitches lights out when he returns. And then round 8, I kind of went for the positional flexibility as well. I left Josh Bell. I wanted a first baseman. Left Josh Bell out here. He actually got picked right after me. And I got Luis Arraez. So because he's a first baseman, and then I was thinking I was play second baseman. So has that flexibility. May not have the power numbers as a Josh Bell. But for me, the positional flexibility, I think, is one thing I went after here. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, McKenzie, K per 9 last year, 190 innings. He was a sub 3 ERA too, I believe. Really good pitcher, obviously solid, atop the Guardians rotation. It's a big loss for them. Not sure what he was going to bring this year. Like, would he repeat his season from last year? I wanted to see that, but with him being down 2 months, like that's a big blow for him and for them. I I think maybe you'd be able to get some value if his shoulder is okay. That's always a scary injury with pitchers, but in general, hopefully there are replacement level guys out there that can, fill up some of his production. And then Arise, yeah, great on base guy, Sox killer. I mean, just from a personal standpoint, great batting average, obviously. So if you are doing batting average in your league, that's a stat that's going to matter for categories, like super important, and he's going to help keep that number up for sure. I like him. He's a solid player, especially when you're getting him at round 8. I think that's a good value. I mean, would we love to see him pop 20 home runs and get to maybe 90 RBIs as a hitter? Like, sure, but it's probably not going to be part of his game, even though he's playing first base, which traditionally would come with all that. But I don't know where his steals numbers were, but I just think he's just a good overall baseball player. I mean, I feel like he kind of reminds me a little bit, less power, but like a Tim Anderson type, or Jeff McNeil in the NL. I think that's like both of them winning the batting titles. I feel like they're very comparable players, so you can probably count on them to be steady at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, batting average and I think hits were taken into account in here too. So hoping to like hone in that stat with him and then mixture with Saquon. I'm hoping to just kind of annihilate those two stats there. But who do you got for your next 2 picks?
For round 7 and 8, I grabbed for my outfield position Corbin Carroll. I feel like it's kind of a risky pick. Round 7, I'm looking at like pick 75 here. Can he be a top 75 player? Like, we'll see. I feel like we've seen nothing from him in the pros besides, a September call-up last year where he performed pretty well, 260. I think he had like a 330 OBP, showed a little bit of his, stolen base capability. I think he had some doubles and triples. But just with everything that everybody's saying about him, from him being, kind of just taking over center field, I feel like is where he's going to be slated. They're saying like 60 stolen base upside, rookie of the year, this and that. He's got all the tools. I just want to see it. I've been burned in the past with high rookie picks like this. I've went after Vladimir Guerrero after I think he came up briefly in 2019 or something. He completely busted for me. But I think I've done the same with like Luis Robert also in the past, or Eloy, one or the other. But I'm interested in rolling the dice here. I feel confident enough that he's the kind of athlete that can stay on the field, and like I'm just waiting for that upside to come into play. So felt comfortable taking that pick then. In round 8, I was actually surprised, but Sander Bogaerts fell to me there. I think a lot of people are concerned about him shifting leagues, being a bit older. He only had 15 home runs and 70 RBIs last year in Boston. They're like, okay, now what happens if he goes to San Diego? I think what people are forgetting is this guy is just a true veteran player, hitter, champion, etc. Now you put him in a lineup where he gets to hit either in front of or behind Soto, Tatis, Machado, Cronenworth, you name it. It's like, I mean, I get all he's been faded. People are saying like this guy's a projected bust. And like, if he gives me 15 home runs and 70 RBIs like he did last year, that's a good pick for me. Like I drafted him at his value of that, but I think he's got a higher ceiling than that. And that's just my own opinion, but I'm going against the analysts here. And I grabbed Bogaerts in round 8.
Got it. Yeah. First, with Corbin Carroll, I mean, he had over 100 at-bats, so he's not like a complete, I know he's like up for the Rookie of the Year award and everything, right? But not like a brand new, spanking new Rookie Year type of thing. So definitely has some at-bats under his belt and everything that we've seen. Like they gave him a contract extension too and all that. So they feel pretty confident. And with that lineup, like he's definitely going to be getting his at-bats. So I mean, I think it's, it's worth the gamble, I think, versus like, I don't know, a rookie that's like a 9th hitter for the Yankees or something like that. Or maybe not the Yankees because it's a good hitting, traditionally good hitting, but like a 9th hitter for, maybe an NL team or something like that back in the day. So, and with regards to Xander Bogaerts, I mean, he's, as much as like, I guess he's been a pretty solid glove in his career, right? people forget he's actually a really good hitter, So with the protection that they have, they may not have the Fenway Park type of statistics, right? But he still is a really solid hitter. He's, can have that, pretty decent batting average, hit for pop as well on occasion too. So, I don't see, if RBIs are something for you, with that lineup. If he's been behind, I think he'll probably bat behind like Soto and stuff. Like Soto's going to get on base, so he can probably help bat him in. So, for a shortstop, I think that's pretty good value there. I'm thinking.
And how about rounds 9 and 10 for you?
Yeah, 9 and 10. So, I didn't get Varsho because I went smart and got Tristan McKenzie there. So I did want to get a catcher here. Picked Ryomoto actually. So I don't know if anybody ever saw that John Boy Media clip of him and the umpire, right? I don't know if you saw that, but like he got kicked out basically for dropping a ball, or he was faking, or the umpire was thinking that he was going to hand him a ball to like throw to the pitcher, but misunderstood or something like that happened. And anyways, he got ejected, and I think the umpire felt bad about it afterwards. So that was the whole thing. But back to Ryomoto though, like the player, the fantasy baseball player. He's a catcher, even though he's like I think 32 or something like that. Still might be able to steal some bases here and there. So good speed, good power, good average. So one of the better overall catchers I think in the game. So try to get a little bit more of a bat there at catcher. Although Corbin Carroll, at least in my league, went after, and then Luis Robert, and then Yoshida as well. So a couple good outfitters there. And then at number 10 though, I was looking to again go back to pitching. The pick right before me was Carlos Rodon, which I probably would have drafted. But again, I'm kind of bullish on Kansas City a little bit. I went with Brady Singer. One of the top, I think he would have been like a top 5, maybe, one of the top picks in his draft, if I'm not mistaken. But had a pretty good season last season. Maybe didn't have the best ERA, but struck out a bunch of people, and I think he's going to be progressing. I think he's like 27 now or something like that. So kind of reaching that prime pitcher age. So I feel like he's going to have a good year with the Royals there. So especially now that I struck out, or maybe not struck out, but I'm going to have to wait on McKenzie. Having I guess someone that can get some strikeouts with Brady Singer, I think is something I hold value there. So. Yeah.
I mean, JT Realmuto in the 9th round is an incredible value. I mean, that's like almost a steal, because I think in my draft he went in like round 4, and I think some guys, want to reach for the upper echelon catchers. There aren't a ton of them, but I feel like this year with guys like Varsho, I ended up with MJ Melendez later in my draft, just another everyday player who has a catcher designation. This year, it just feels like catcher is like a little deeper. But still, I mean, Realmuto, I think, was the first overall catcher last year. So to get him in round 9 again is pretty it's a pretty great value. Singer, I like the upside. I mean, he pitched well on and off, I think, last year. I had him at one point. I think he is a first round product out of Florida, if I'm not wrong there. But I like where his career is going. I mean, he had a rocky start to his career, and he's just shown improvement year over year. Like last year was a really good campaign for him. So I think you will have a guy in Singer that you'll have in your rotation all year. But overall, I don't have a lot of qualms with him as a player in general. But outside of that, I guess for rounds 9 and 10, I picked up this one was tough. I was trying to go back up to the Northwest. Looking at Robbie Ray's teammates out there, wanted another pitcher. And I've had my eye on this guy since last year, and I owned him because another guy dropped him. He was going through some ups and downs, but had an amazing end of the year. But I picked up George Kirby in round 9. A lot of hype around this guy coming into the league. I mean, I think at the start of last season, he was a top waiver guy, somebody that most guys were just hoping he'd make the major league roster. And when he did, fantasy managers so like pouncing on picking him up. He kind of underwhelmed, I think, throughout most of the year, but toward the end, he was just every game. I felt like he was a quality start, just one after the other, and really put together a nice year. So I'm hoping he can follow up with that and kind of build on, the innings, that he put up last year. I think he put up like 130 innings. So if he can just get to like 160, that'd be great. But may not have as much volume as other guys that, are more or less your traditional aces. And in round 10, I picked up Lars Nootbaar. I feel like Lars had on paper, if you just look at his averages and stuff, like not exciting. I think his OBP was decent. He popped 14 home runs or so, but looking at his advanced metrics, one of the highest average exit velocities in the game, good hard hit percentage. He just makes really good quality contact consistently. He's a great runner. He's a great fielder. Like, he's just a pure athlete. And I think a lot of, analysts overall are really excited about what he can do in a full campaign. He's got a really good K to walk ratio. So I think, just got a good batting eye and stuff like that. So even if the averages appear low, he's still going to get on base enough. But, I really want to see if he can make another step, in this year. So he's going to be surrounded by some really great, talent in that offense. So I'm like, if I can get some shares of him, if he's batting at the top of the order or somewhere in the middle, like just hoping to reap some benefits out of him as like an everyday starting outfielder.
Yeah. No, you definitely went for the upside here, which I think, is good at, in like rounds like 9 and 10, right? Like, players that are key contributors for the team, solid overall stats, but then, like are, 24, 25, maybe this is like their second year or third year. So that's usually like where players, they tend to take off a little bit more. So I think, these are probably good positions, with George Kirby getting him there, has one of those pitchers that has more strikeouts than innings pitched, right? So he had 130. If he can get 160, great. And then, I think he had 133 strikeouts as well. So, if he's able to translate that, that's probably 160 some odd of 170 strikeouts there for, a season. So if he can replicate what he did kind of last season, a little bit there, then hey, why not? And with the Seattle squad that they have there, I think that's, I know I've spoken, their lineup isn't that great, but I think they'll get some wins for sure. So and Lars, I definitely like a lot of upside there. That Cardinals team, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them, but they're definitely heavily favored and definitely a team to watch. And I think Lars has a lot of upside. Like you mentioned, the OBP is he's a sabermetrics like glove child or something like that. So yeah, definitely a good pick there.
Well, I know there were multiple rounds to follow, probably for both of our drafts, but I guess, were there any other guys that you were just especially, glad to add to your team, some steals, or just guys think will have like really good years this year?
Yeah, at least for me, I was looking at like, I do think there's some, I guess, upside for Jose Miranda. For me in ESPN, he's a first base and third baseman. So, there's positional value there. But, I think we've been kind of talking about, at least I know you have for sure, about the Twins, having some promise, I think. So I think Jose Miranda can be one of those key members to kind of take them from where they were last year to, maybe higher heights this coming year. Other players, I'm looking at here, Estrada potentially too, if you're looking for a second baseman. I think we were talking about that. I kind of had him as, I guess, a backup to Albies for my team. But yeah, how about you, Pat?
At least on my end, I got Jordan Walker in the 16th round. I was actually just surprised he fell that late based on all the hype, based on everything that analysts are saying about, his productivity in the minors, to what he did earlier on in spring training, just how hard he's actually hitting baseballs and just how consistent of a hitter he's been at his age and at the levels he's played at so far. I mean, granted, the guy's 20 years old. He made the opening day roster. They're going to plug him into left field, but in some leagues, I've heard he's gone like 90th overall, and I think I got him at pick 190. So it's just like, I mean, to me, this is like no risk, because if he doesn't happen to be good or needs more seasoning in the minors or just isn't a platoon split with one of the other Cardinals, like I can just drop him and not feel bad about it. So, I'll take my chances, because if his upside is there and he just happens to have like a Julio Rodriguez or Ronald Acuna light rookie year, I mean, looking at like almost an all-star caliber player for free. Besides that, I am looking forward to seeing like how Hunter Brown's going to do. I grabbed him in round 17. With McCullers out, they're saying that he's going to be in the starting rotation. For me, he was our relief pitcher eligible, so I can throw him into one of the RP slots. I think I would predict him to win the Rookie of the Year, so I think highly enough of him as a talent and how he's going to aggregate stats, whether he's a reliever, starter, whatever else. But just excited to kind of take the ride based on all the hype and everything like that. And he's obviously playing for Houston, so I feel pretty comfortable with the uniform he puts on every day.
Yeah. I'm definitely a big fan, I think, of Jordan Walker. I think I predicted him to win Rookie of the Year. And then I think you forced me to think more about Corbin Carroll a little bit there. But, player that plays for, it's definitely, I guess, that argument. It's like you take a player that has all the talent in the world, or maybe you have two players that have all the talent in the world, right? One, you stick them like on the top of the lineup, right? They're going to get a bunch of at-bats versus maybe a player, they're in a loaded lineup, maybe you bat them like 5th or 6th or 7th or something like that. But, they're going to get be batting in front of people that get on base, that, drive in runs, that are going to drive a starting pitching out. So maybe that helps, that 7th player. I'm kind of thinking like maybe of, that Cleveland roster like back in the 90s, right, was just loaded. Like I can't remember who like their 7th hitter was, but if it was like Manny Ramirez or something like that, it's like that's pretty sick. So yeah, that's kind of one thing I think with Jordan Walker is that with that team, he's just gonna obliterate it, and he's just gonna they're gonna I'm really excited if I'm a Cardinals fan, I would say. So very excited about Jordan Walker.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear. It is funny to think like Harrell and Walker might be going head to head with each other for Rookie of the Year, and I grabbed one in round 7, like really highly valued pick, and grabbed the other in like round 16. So like, God, man, I hope it's a race between those two. I hope they, just kill it all year. I'm taming my expectations a bit just based on, Walker's age and maybe lack of experience and like how competitive that team might be, where he might get some of his at bats stolen. But yeah, man, gotta love the talent. And if it's not this year, I'm sure there'll be other, big years ahead for him as a Major League Baseball player. But I guess with that, that was our fantasy drafts. Overall, I thought it was a lot of fun. If you guys have any thoughts on our picks, any of them, based on our leagues or whatever else, like feel free to drop a comment down. We've been definitely appreciating your feedback on other videos and stuff. So, keep it coming. Feel free to, attack, me or Wayne or however you feel, or compliment us however you'd like. But, we'll be on YouTube and Instagram as well for stuff like that. But I guess at least on the baseball front, I just wanted to ask you, Wayne, before opening day kicks off on Thursday, is there just anything else you're excited about this year, something you'll be tracking, just overall in the game?
Yeah, no, for sure. In terms of tracking, I definitely will be interested to see, I guess, Shohei, I know we posted like a video, I think it was like last week, basically, or a couple of days ago, got a lot of views. That's great. Thank you for doing all that. But interested to see like if Shohei can maintain what he's been doing, I think, from the past couple of seasons. I mean, I think we've both been kind of thinking about like, can he be the GOAT? Like who's done it at this level, I guess, in this day and age, right? So I'll be definitely watching Shohei, definitely be watching the White Sox for sure, seeing hopefully, better managing and a healthier squad. And then, I got some bets too going on, I think, with regards to Cy Young awards and all that, hoping that Dylan Cease gets it. So things like that. I'm, for me, I'm a sucker for good pitching. So, if I see a 1-0 score or something like that in a box score, I'm definitely going to be excited to see some of that. So very much looking for that. kind of, I want to see actually Jack Flaherty like actually come back and, hey, with this whole new Cardinal squad, this Cardinal squad is going to be sick, I think, especially if Jordan Walker can play to his potential in his rookie year here. So that's definitely a team to watch. So overall, I'm just looking forward to getting outside. I don't know how this, my skin is showing right now on the screen, but I look pale as hell. So I like, Casper or whatever, if they powdered up or something. So looking forward to getting outside, watching some baseball, getting some sun. So, but yeah, how about you, Pat?
Yeah. Overall, just like wondering how, banning the shift, making bases bigger, putting pitch clocks up for pitchers, like how this is actually going to change baseball. Like I've heard that the juice ball era is now done. They're going to go back to like balls that are a little bit more deadened. It seems like they're making concessions for offense. They're making concessions for pitching. So it's like, will this all just balance out and be really no big deal? But I think for left-handed hitters, just not having three infielders to the left, or whatever else, it's really going to help them, turn those ground outs into base hits and shallow pops to right field, not be catched by, second baseman, but maybe fall right in front of the right fielder like traditional times. So will this, stolen base game get accelerated? Maybe. I mean, there's pickoff limits that we've talked about in the past. The bases have gotten just a touch bigger. Like, will that actually matter? Like, we'll have to find out. And I guess with the pitch clocks, like, what's the rhythm and cadence of the game going to be like? Are certain pitchers that have been so used to maybe holding the ball for a little bit longer or, kind of taking their time going to be at a disadvantage? Or, will batters who have, a lot of superstitions, will they have to like kind of hurry up their approach as well? Like there's just a lot of rules that will add like balls and strikes that I think the game may need just based on, a general fan, casual fan, buy-in perspective. But, for some of us traditionalists, it's like, I want the game to be better. Like I want it to be more exciting, but I just hope it's not like a circus out there where it's like every other pitch is an added ball or strike because they can't get their shit together. So, I guess from a rules perspective, that's what I'm kind of, seeing as far as this year goes. And I guess from a baseball perspective and just, looking at a team, I'm kind of tracking a team. I really hope the Mariners take that extra step. I mean, I looked back at that rotation one more time and the relief corps, and I'm like, man, I want to make you guys, the AL West champions this year. I want to make you a dark horse for World Series and winning it all. The offense is the thing that is going to kind of stir the pot with that team for me. I mean, I think Julio Rodriguez is obviously a stud. If he can be an MVP candidate, like they've got a pretty good shot. But guys like Ty France, Colton Wong, JP Crawford, like Kelenic maybe having like a good season. They're all potential. I mean, it's Teoscar Hernandez, like, can he have that bounce back year? Like if they can string together that offense to complement that, like elite starting pitching and good relief corps, like we are maybe looking at a World Series dark horse that not a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of Mariners fans from, my second hometown, I guess now. So, but yeah, no, that pitching squad, I think, is definitely going to carry them. If they can muster up enough runs, though, I think that's the key. The key ask from them is just, hey, I know they lost Mitch Haniger this offseason, but yeah, like you mentioned, they got Teoscar. So hopefully, some of their players have a little bit more of a bounce back, I think, from their previous from last year, I guess, with regards to their offense. I know like Jesse Winker, he didn't do so hot. I know he's with a different team now, but there's something, I guess, in the water. Like all the talent went to Julio Rodriguez, I feel like, so on the offensive side, and then everybody else kind of just hit homers there, right? So hopefully, the Mariners, I think, do bounce back at least offensively. But then, if that happens, if their offensive talent can play up to their potential, that team is, I don't know how even the Astros can contain them there, even with their talented, lineup and pitching too. So, because for me, honestly, like I would take the Mariners pitching over the Astros pitching. It's just that their hitting is so much better. So, yeah. So I think that's a cool thing. And yeah, glad you mentioned the whole, I guess, shifts and rule changes, things like that. Be interesting, like how that impacts the fantasy draft. And like players that, like, the Schwarbers of the world, right, where there was like ultra shifting going on. or Joey Gallo even. I know he'll strike out here and there for sure. But the shift definitely has, I think, changed the game. So for me, I think it is for the better. It definitely got this whole idea though of like, we want to see the best players, left-handed or what, hit the ball. We don't want to see them bunt, right? So I think that's been the biggest, or one of the main reasons why like we never see like a Barry Bonds. If there was a shift for Barry Bonds, why he's not getting paid all that money, or people aren't going to be in the stands to watch him do a bunt, right? So I think it's better for the game overall. I know there's definitely the baseball purist side of like, well, just let them bunt again. We don't want to see the Ken Griffey Juniors of the world, right? Just bunt. So I'm all in favor for that. Let them rake, right? So, but I do want to see more base stealing. I think that is definitely something that's overlooked. There's a lot of players out there that I feel like their value just isn't there as much because, they're not stealing bases, or they're being told not to steal bases. Definitely this whole Moneyball route. So, and I think it's a disservice to the game. It's very exciting. I think there needs to be a challenger for Ricky Henderson. I think that would be great if there is somebody that's able to do that. I don't know if that's going to happen even with these changes, but I mean, base stealing is pretty damn fun, I would say. So was a big fan, I guess, of that Marlins team, right? That went to the World Series with Luis Castillo and Juan Pierre. I think that was pretty awesome how they like essentially almost like stole the World Series. Obviously, they had great pitching, Miguel Cabrera too, and all that, but those guys were running mayhem, against the Cubs team there, and then in the World Series too. So, looking forward to seeing hopefully more base stealing too.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good, wrap up of baseball from where we're sitting right now. Again, baseball starts on Thursday. Couldn't be more excited. I mean, even just to have like a game in the background stuff, like I don't have to watch all 9 innings. It's just kind of like, if you like golf, or if you have other sports where it's just like, hey, that can just be on and I can do like another thing or two at the same time. Like, it's just one of my favorite things. And obviously going to games is a whole lot of fun. These days I get to far less than I used to when I was single in DC, but maybe I'll get out to a Nats game or even Camden Yards again. Maybe Chicago, maybe the White Sox if I'm in town. Like, that'd be a lot of fun too. But fingers crossed for the White Sox, and hopefully they all make a push. But I guess with that, do you have any other final thoughts for this show?
I mean, hey, if you're in Chicago, let me know. Or maybe I'll hit up DC. I don't know. I definitely want to check out my work office there or something like that. So we'll see. But I'm just looking forward to seeing baseball. Watching baseball. Yeah, like you said, having something in the background, or a lot of us are still working from home, but I feel like baseball is like the one sport you can like have in the background and actually still get work done, right? So definitely looking forward to having that.
For sure. I guess for final thoughts, I don't really know if I have a ton. Like I feel like a lot of the food stuff that we'll usually cover, like I kind of did during my fantasy draft segment, but I guess I also forgot to mention one of the guys dropped off a tray of Rice Krispie treats that they had bought, but it was like Rice Krispie treats 3 different ways. One was original, the other was had peanut butter inside of it with chocolate on top, and then one had like Fruity Pebbles and then a mashup of Rice Krispies. So it was kind of like this hybrid or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Rice Krispie ones with the Fruity Pebbles was great. I mean, I'd recommend that to really anybody who likes treats and stuff. But I guess even going back to the Cronut and the pretzels and stuff, I was kind of like thinking about bakeries and stuff. And I don't know if you have any like fond bakery memories or, just overall things you like to get when you go out to a good bakery. But I know we've touched on desserts in the past, but if you have anything specific to that, I would just like to hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah, that's definitely a good question there. I'd say, I was thinking also about the Rice Krispie treats. If you I like how you mentioned like the Fruity Pebbles too. If you haven't tried a not Captain Crunch, the berries, and making them like with the kind of like a Rice Krispie, right, or Captain Crunch berry treat with some marshmallows tying it all together. That is to die for, I would say. So I haven't had the Rice Krispie treats or the Fruity Pebbles, but I would imagine that it's probably comparable to the Captain Crunch, just with a little bit more crunch, So definitely recommend that. But yeah, with regards to the bakeries, I might have talked about it. I love pie. I love pie. So much so there was a place in Seattle. I forget the name now, but it's a pie shop, like a chain, like well-known pie shop there. I used to live a couple blocks from this pie shop, and they had the most deadliest thing. They gave me a punch card, and they sold like single serving pies, and it's like $5 a slice of pie, but it's like really good pie, like gourmet style type of pie, not like from a Kroger store or something like that, like gourmet. Like they'll have I think they call it like the grasshopper pie, right? It's kind of like a mint chocolate chip type of pie, things like that. But I remember like in a month I would go through that punch card. I don't even remember how many there were, but I went through that punch card like through like 3 or 4 punch cards just because I love that pie so much. So definitely a big pie guy. Also like a nice almond croissant. There's a place near me, Flour with the PH. But yeah, they have a really good almond croissant that they have like a little bit of like I think it's like a apple jam of some sort in the middle, just to die for. Great with like a nice cup of coffee, like on a nice relaxing weekend and all that. So those are the ones that come to my mind, but definitely a pie guy.
I'm going to stay on your pie note for a second here. We've got a spot out in Virginia. It's kind of on your way to Quantico if you want to like go down, Southwest and check out the FBI headquarters or whatever. But it's a small little town called Occoquan. It sits on, I believe, some part of the Potomac River, and then one of the like branches that split off from the river itself. But in general, it kind of reminds me of Door County, kind of near Chicagoland area, just like a bunch of different little resort towns. But everything in this little area is mom and pop shops, restaurants, things like that. And then they have this Mom's Apple Pie Bakery that just like is a staple there. It's been there for a long time, but I bought a chocolate pecan pie from that place. And like, I love pecan pie, but like adding the chocolate inside of it, I think it was either chocolate chips or a swirl of some kind, but like just so good. And they just do like, cookies, they do all sorts of fruit pies and stuff like that. But we've, gone down there from time to time, maybe like once a month, once every couple of months or something like that. But then every time we leave, we always have, some sort of pie to go. So yeah, I don't know, just made like those bakeries and stuff, especially like the mom and pop owned ones, just, man, it's just like good for the soul. You know what I mean? But I will give a shout out to one of my buddies, Walker. We were at college. This is probably my favorite baked good of all time. But every once in a while, his mom would just stop, and he was my roommate in college at DePaul. But every time his mom came out to visit, probably saw her like every few months or something, she'd always bring a pan of her some more brownies. And legitimately, Ken, like that tray probably had like 20 or more brownies in it. The thing would be gone in 2 to 3 nights between he and I, because that thing would just sit up on the counter and like you would just take a little bit and then go back and take a little bit more. But essentially the base layer was graham crackers. The next layer was just a very thick chocolate chip fudge brownie. And then on top, it was just nothing but small marshmallows over the top. And then you just kind of pop that thing in the oven, like cut it all out. And the thing was just like the marshmallow just stretch out. And man, it was just everything you really wanted in a dessert. Like, I don't know a person who doesn't like s'mores. The person should be just not on earth if they don't. But in general, like with the brownie element to it too, it's just like so unctuous, you know what I mean? Like just so filling and sweet and all good stuff. But man, still probably to this day, one of like my top dessert memories.
I'm salivating right now. Oh man, that sounds so good. No, I definitely like a good s'more. So I think like any s'more, like even like s'more like ice cream, right? Stuff like that, or s'more like if it is a dessert and it has the word s'mores in there or something like that, and it has like the basic s'more stuff, then it's definitely like what is this? Let me eat some of this. I feel like and then you step on the scale the next day and you're like, that was a mistake. So definitely appreciate, I think, a good s'more type of dessert. Before I forget, because I wanted to name the Seattle pie shop as Alamo Pies, actually. I think there's several locations there. So, but yeah, hopefully they are still doing the punch card, because that thing is the best thing ever, for sure.
No doubt. Well, maybe we should open up a bakery one day, the Ball and Breakfast Pie Shop. I mean, I'm sure we'd sell lots of units if we stick with just pies themselves. But yeah, just in general, good coverage of baseball, food, our drafts, everything else. Looking forward to Thursday, the big kickoff. So I think with that, Wayne, if you have no further thoughts, we can wrap up the show for tonight.
Yeah. Other than that, hopefully, I'm wondering if the White Sox, or if anybody has a promotion for pie at a stadium, let us know. That would be a great shout out for us to do. So, but yeah.
No doubt. Well, grab your plates, fill up some good, beer, or whatever else you want in your cup. Enjoy kicking back on Thursday night as opening day. Should start, at least for the White Sox. I know there'll be action going on throughout the day, whether you got a package or not, but definitely looking forward to baseball. Been missing it a lot, and these last couple of months have been pretty dead. So definitely need that new jolt, and excited to see how the season plays out.